Hello, folks. Frank again, reading continually on Douglas Jerrod. Douglas Jerrod. Remember, get your information on how to get a copy or just to see what it's all about at Douglas Jerrod and SamsonPWillings.com for all the info. And to see the other videos of the readings that I have already done, go to FJ Invisible at YouTube and become a subscriber to the channel to see all the reading videos and other videos that I have posted throughout the time that I've had my channel. So without a further ado, we will start reading of Douglas Jerrod. Now, we are switching back to the blue-eyed section of the readings. Blue-eyed, chapter 8, check-in and check-ups. Yeah. Douglas awoke in his bed, calmly in his room. He smiled as he sat up on his bed. It is good to see that all warnings have been taken seriously, he elaborately thought while the orderly stepped in front of his door. Patient 64, it is time for breakfast. I could go for something to eat. No, there is not going to be any business. No, sir. Good. The orderly slowly opened Douglas's door and motioned Douglas to come with him. Douglas exited his room and proceeded down the hallway as the orderly led him to the main hall. He pondered about what was on the menu while they walked towards the folding doors. I could go for some eggs. Do you know what we are having today? Douglas asked of the orderly as the orderly and he walked through the doors to the main hall. While they both walked into the main hall, where the occupancies of the facility were already waiting, the smell of bacon entered his nose. Ah, bacon, the sweet food of the gods, he stated within his mind before he sat in his usual chair in front of the caged window. Thank you, sir. It is my job, so there is no thank you necessary, but I appreciate the gesture. The orderly replied to Douglas's pleasantries. He then noticed that Douglas had the biggest smile he had ever seen on this man's face. He must have had the best dream ever or the best news ever. He pondered before he just asked Douglas about his demeanor. You look like you got some good news or a pretty awesome dream. Both, actually. They are going to be all right. Douglas commented back to the wondrous orderly. My son is a captain and can walk, and my grandson is a sergeant and still alive. Life is grand for the Jerrods. He reflected on the things he saw through his journey as a kitchen staff brought him a tray with scrambled eggs and bacon on it. If you visualize, you will receive. Whatever, man. You enjoy your meal, 64. The orderly shook his head in disbelief at the incoherent words that came out of Douglas's mouth. As he walked away, he let the words play through his head. They will be all right. Who's they? What about visualizing and receiving? Well, I guess that is why he is here and not in the real world. Douglas picked up the spoon that was supplied with his meal. I wish they would just give me a fork. It is not like I am going to stab anyone. But I can't speak for any of the other crazies, he thought while he scooped up a spoonful of eggs and shoveled them into his mouth. As he chewed the mouthful, Eve strolled up with a tray of her own. "Hey, Douglas, how are you this morning?" "Not bad. Not bad at all. My boys are doing well for themselves." "Fred, come to visit?" "No. I've seen how his life turns out though." "What? I don't follow what you are talking about." "Just eat your eggs," Douglas replied to Eve. He grabbed a piece of bacon and put it into his mouth. As he chewed the whole piece of bacon in his mouth, he shoveled another spoonful of eggs in his gullet. He savored the meal with every bite until his tray was clear of all the food. He then got up and handed the closest orderly the empty tray. "It looks like someone had an appetite this morning." "Yes, I did. And let me add, it was the best meal I have had in a while." As Douglas conversed with the one orderly, another orderly strolled through the folding doors to the main hall. The man in white walked up on Douglas and the orderly. He reached up and lightly placed his hand on Douglas's shoulder to gain his attention. While Douglas directed his attention to the man, the orderly began to talk. "Dr. Scott is ready for you." "It is time for my meeting already?" "Well, when you're wanted." Douglas willfully went with the orderly towards the folding doors that led to the hallway. "I have a lot to tell the doc. Edwin helped my boys get the life they deserve. I need to thank him for that." He went over the thoughts in his mind while the orderly led him to the normal rec room where Dr. Scott awaited his arrival. "Hey, Doc, thanks for mailing that letter. It worked as well as expected." Douglas showed his gratitude to Dr. Scott as he planned while the orderly walked him into the room and sat him down in the metal folding chair on his side of the table across from the doctor. He placed his hands palm down on the flat surface and looked to the doctor with a smile on his face. After the orderly sat him down in the chair, the doctor waved the orderly off to leave them by themselves. Before the orderly left, Dr. Scott left him with instructions to wait outside the door. "How do you know I sent your letter and didn't just put it in your file?" "I seen the outcome of it. My boys are fine now." "Your boys? What are you speaking of?" "My boy Fred and his son Douglas. They are figureheads of their department because of that letter and you, Doc. So, I say, thanks." "Well, since you mentioned Fred, he has put in a request to see you later. The only thing is, you have to agree. So do you want to see him?" Dr. Scott quickly changed the chaotic subject to a more tangible one. While he waited briefly for Douglas to answer, he pondered the man's words. His boys are all right. He has seen it. This reaction from a simple letter. After he analyzed the comments, he came to the conclusion that everything that helps Douglas be optimistic and more interactive was a plus. "Yes, I would love to see my only child. It will be nice to talk to him about what is going on in his life." That is great to hear. In my opinion, Douglas, you are making great strides to recovery. The doctor jotted down his observation of his subject in the legal pad. he had lying on the table in front of him. After he was finished writing his conclusion, he opened his briefcase, put all the materials into it, closed it back up, and stood up out of his chair. He then walked over to the door and motioned to the orderly to open it up. As the orderly let him out, he turned to address Douglas before he left. "By the way, happy birthday. It is the 31st already?" "Yes. It will be a new year tomorrow, and if you continue showing progress, it could be a new beginning for you." "A new beginning sounds nice. Just stay here. Fred will be in shortly to see you." "He is already here?" Dr. Scott nodded to Douglas to signal that indeed his son was waiting to see him before Edwin left to continue the rest of his rounds for the day. After a few seconds of listening to the footsteps that walked up and down the hall, Douglas's younger-like version of his father entered the room, with the orderly shutting the door behind him. The 20-year-old boy strolled around to the other side of the table across from his father and took a seat. After he sat down, he unzipped his black leather jacket to reveal a white t-shirt that peered through the unzipped crease. "Hey, Pops. How have you been doing lately?" "I've been doing okay. Pondering over it a little here and a little there. It helps to pass the time. How about you?" "I'm doing all right myself. That's why I came today. I met a special lady that has taken my heart away. I would like to invite you to my wedding. Hopefully you won't be here at that time." "What is the lucky lady's name?" "Pam. She is the most wonderful person in the world. I can't wait for you to meet her. I love to meet the future mother of my grand..." Douglas caught himself before he spilled the beans about Douglas Jr. He didn't want his boy to think he was worse than the psychologist had reported to Fred already. Fred began to being the only person he had left since Grandhilda died. He didn't want to lose the respect that Fred held for him. If he told Fred now, Fred wouldn't fully understand him. "Child? Dad, are you okay?" Yeah. I just had a lot on my mind, but it's all taken care of. The doctor told me I was on a good start to recovery, so I might be out before your wedding." Douglas spoke as he thought on the fly. If only Brynhilda was still with them. She would be so proud of their boy. Just if we would have stayed at the house party, she might still be here. He started to go over the darker parts of his memory, the gas station, the collection of supplies, and then the bullets from the wildly fired gun. "Have you visited your mother lately?" "I stopped at her grave and told her about the wedding before coming to see you. She would have been so proud of you." "I also became an officer in the vice department." "No more parking tickets for your son." "You're really moving up in the world. A family, a career. Now the only thing left is fatherhood." Well, while Douglas completed his words, the orderly opened the door to signal that the visit time was up. Fred slowly stood up from his seat. As he made his way out of the room, he kissed Douglas on the forehead and said goodbye. Then the orderly and he left the room after the orderly motioned for Douglas to wait for him to return. And that was Chapter 8 of Douglas Jerrod. Remember, Go to Douglas Jerrod and SamsonPWhalings.com for all information on getting Douglas Jerrod. And remember that if you've missed the earlier readings of the chapters of Douglas Jerrod, just go to FJ Invisible's YouTube channel and subscribe, and you can see all of them in their entirety. Thank you, and have a nice day. Frank, out.